I've covered a lot of dark stuff on this channel, but a few of these genuinely stuck with me. These were doctors, people whose whole job was to help you, and what some of them did. Take this as your warning. What's coming is really disturbing. But hey, if you're still here, grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's have some fun. From the day you were born, you were taught to trust one kind of stranger completely. You let them put you to sleep. You let them hold the knife. You tell them things you would never tell anyone else. And you do it because of one symbol, the white coat. It means safe. It means help. This video is about the people who wore that coat, earned that trust, and used it to do things no soldier, no dictator, no monster in a mask ever could. Because the most dangerous person in history was never the one pointing a weapon at you. It was the one you were begging to come closer. Let's start with the man who maimed thousands and was applauded for it, and work our way down to the worst of them all. Number 6. Dr. Walter Freeman. Walter Freeman grew up in the long shadow of greatness. His grandfather was one of the most famous surgeons in America, and Freeman spent his whole life desperate to make a name just as big. He was brilliant, theatrical, and impatient, and in the 1940s he found his shortcut to fame, a procedure he could perform in 10 minutes, with no operating room, that he promised could cure madness itself. The lobotomy. Here is how he did it, and it is hard to believe it was legal. Freeman would render a patient unconscious, lift the eyelid, and drive a modified ice pick through the thin bone at the top of the eye socket, with a small hammer. Then he would sweep it back and forth to sever the front of the brain. He was not even a trained surgeon. He performed roughly 3,500 of these, sometimes dozens, in a single day, traveling the country in a personal van the press nicknamed the lobotomobile. He did them on adults, on the depressed, on the inconvenient, and on children as young as 4. Many of his patients were left blank, childlike, or worse. One of the most famous was Rosemary Kennedy, sister of a future president, who went into his procedure a mildly rebellious young woman and came out unable to walk or speak properly, hidden away for the rest of her life. Freeman kept going for decades, celebrated as a medical pioneer, until a patient died under his hand and his license was finally taken. He maimed thousands of people with a tool from a hardware store, and for years, the world called him a genius. Number 5. Dr. H. Holmes. His real name was Herman Webster Mudgett, and as a boy in New Hampshire, he was bullied and strange. The story he later told was that other children, knowing he was frightened of the local doctor, dragged him and forced him to touch a human skeleton. It was meant to terrify him. Instead, something in him lit up. He became obsessed with bodies, with death, and with how much a corpse could be worth. He earned a real medical degree and learned early that he could steal cadavers, disfigure them, and claim them on insurance policies. But his masterpiece came with the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago. Holmes built a 3-story hotel designed by a man who kept firing his builders, so no one but him ever understood the full plan. Inside were windowless rooms, hallways that led nowhere, gas lines he could control from his office to asphyxiate guests in their sleep, chutes that dropped bodies straight to the basement, and a furnace and acid pits to make them disappear. As tourists poured into the city for the fair, Holmes rented rooms to young women and travelers, and many of them were never seen again. He confessed to 27 murders, though the true number may be higher, and he profited from their deaths through insurance and theft the entire time. He was eventually caught not for murder, but for an insurance scam, and was hanged in 1896. He had turned the hotel into a machine for killing people, and ran it in the middle of a crowded city while everyone smiled and looked the other way. Number 4. Dr. Marcel Petiot. Marcel Petiot was charming, intelligent, and deeply wrong from a young age. As a boy, he was caught stealing and showed disturbing behavior, and during the First World War he was diagnosed with mental illness. None of it stopped him from becoming a doctor, and even a respected local mayor in France, all while quietly committing fraud and crimes in the background. Then came his opportunity, the Nazi occupation of Paris. As Jewish families and others desperately sought to escape France, Petiot advertised himself, through whispers, as a hero. He claimed to run a secret escape route that could smuggle the hunted to safety in Argentina. The price was high, but for people fleeing for their lives, it was worth everything. They came to his house on the Rue Le Sueur with their families and their life savings sewn into their clothes. He told them the journey required a vaccine. He injected them, and the injection was poison. Then he robbed the bodies of everything they carried, and destroyed them in quicklime and in a furnace. He preyed on people whose only crime was trying to survive a genocide. He was finally discovered in 1944 when neighbors complained about thick, foul smoke pouring from his chimney for days, and police found the remains of dozens of victims. He claimed to be a resistance fighter killing Nazis. The court did not believe him, and he was sent to the guillotine in 1946. Number 3. Dr. Harold Shipman. Harold Shipman is the reason this list is so frightening, because he was not hiding in a war or a fairground. He was a kind, trusted family doctor in a quiet English town, the kind of man whose patients adored him. When Shipman was 17, he watched his mother die slowly of cancer. In her final days, a doctor gave her morphine, and the boy watched the drug wash away her pain and her fear. It left a permanent mark on him. He became a general practitioner, beloved by his community, known for spending real time with his elderly patients. And over more than 2 decades, he used exactly that trust to become the most prolific serial killer in modern history. He would visit older patients in their homes, often alone, and administer a lethal dose of diamorphine, a form of heroin. Then he would calmly record their deaths as natural, and sometimes alter their medical records to fit. For years, no one suspected the gentle doctor signing so many death certificates. He was finally caught through pure arrogance when he forged the will of one of his victims to leave her money to himself, and her family grew suspicious. An inquiry later concluded that Harold Shipman had murdered around 250 of his own patients, people who opened their doors to him with a smile. He hanged himself in his prison cell in 2004, having never explained why. Number 2. Dr. Shiro Ishii. Now we leave the work of single men and enter something far larger, sanctioned by a government and hidden from the world for decades. Shiro Ishii was born into a wealthy Japanese family, and was by all accounts brilliant, charming, and breathtakingly arrogant. He convinced the Japanese military to let him build a research program in occupied China, a program he promised would make Japan unstoppable. It was called Unit 731, and it was a factory for human experimentation disguised as a water purification plant. The prisoners, Chinese civilians, soldiers, men, women, and children, were referred to by the staff not as people but as logs. And what was done to them is among the worst cruelty ever documented. Victims were infected with plague, cholera, and anthrax to study the diseases. They were subjected to frostbite experiments and to pressure chambers. And most infamously, they were cut open and operated on while fully alive and conscious, without anesthesia, so that doctors could observe fresh organs without the interference of medicine. Ishii's unit then weaponized these diseases, dropping plague-infected fleas on Chinese cities, killing many thousands more. Here is the part that should make you furious. When the war ended, Shiro Ishii was never punished. The United States military, hungry for his biological warfare data, secretly granted him and his men immunity in exchange for their research. He was not put on trial. He was not hanged. He lived out his life as a free man and died of natural causes in 1959. His crimes buried for decades. The man who ran one of history's worst atrocities got to grow old. Number 1. Dr. Josef Mengele. And finally, the man whose name became a synonym for medical evil. Josef Mengele came from a prosperous, respectable Bavarian family that owned a successful manufacturing company. He was well educated, ambitious, and earned not 1 but 2 doctorates. He was not a poor, broken outcast. He was a polished, intelligent young man who looked at the rising Nazi ideology and embraced it completely, joining the SS and rising through its ranks. In 1943 he was posted to Auschwitz, and there he earned the name the Angel of Death. He would stand on the railway platform as trainloads of terrified prisoners arrived, and with a casual wave of his hand, decide in an instant who would be worked to death and who would be murdered immediately. But it was his experiments that placed him at the very bottom of this list. Mengele was obsessed with twins, and he collected them like specimens. He subjected children to horrifying procedures, injected dyes into their eyes, operated on them without anesthesia, deliberately infected them, and when they died, dissected them. He treated living children as a laboratory, and like the man before him, he escaped. As the war collapsed, Mengele slipped away, and with the help of sympathizers, fled to South America. He lived in Argentina, then Paraguay, then Brazil, for over 30 years, hunted but never caught. He was never tried. He was never punished. In 1979, he suffered a stroke while swimming in the sea and drowned, dying free under a false name. The most infamous doctor in history got away with all of it. So look back at these 6 men and notice what they actually had in common. It was not poverty. Most of them were privileged, educated, and respected. It was not that they were obviously monstrous. The opposite was true. They were trusted precisely because of the coat they wore and the title in front of their name. And notice one more thing. The thing that should disturb you most. How many of them were never truly punished? Holmes and Petiot met justice, but Freeman died comfortable. Ishii was protected, and Mengele died a free man in the sea. The white coat was never just a symbol of healing. In the wrong hands, it was the most effective weapon ever invented, because it made you walk toward the danger instead of running from it. The next time someone tells you to trust them because of their title, remember that every person on this list had one too. So that's 6 doctors who were supposed to save lives, and did the complete opposite. And the worst part? Most of them got away with it. Anyway, if you made it all the way here, you've officially got a strong stomach. Subscribe if you want the next one, because trust me, it's just as messed up. Take care of yourselves out there, and maybe be a little nicer to your doctor. See ya.